We hit the two-thirds mark of the Saints season today, and New Orleans will attempt to do something it hasn't been able to do so far. Specifically, win a game for the second consecutive week. But to do so, the Saints will have to accomplish it on the road at Levi's Stadium in Santa Clara, California, and against one of the NFL's most well-balanced teams, the San Francisco 49ers. Welcome to Saints Game Day Live, presented by Sanderson Farms. I'm John DeShazier, and in short order, we're going to do our countdown to kickoff. We'll give you today's inactives. We'll check in with our co-host, Aaron Summers, live from Levi's Stadium. We'll run through our breakdown featuring Saints Hall of Famer and Pro Football Hall of Fame semifinalist Jahri Evans. We'll sit down for our player spotlight with emerging linebacker Kaden Elliss, and we'll roll out the black and gold roll call. But first, if you're planning on tuning into the game, kickoff is at 3:25 p.m. Central Time on Fox 8 in New Orleans. Or if radio is your preference, take a listen to Mike Haas, Deuce McAllister, and Steve Geller on WWL 870 AM. Now, New Orleans is coming off a 27-20 win over the Rams, a much-needed one considering it snapped a two-game losing streak and kept alive New Orleans' hopes for winning the NFC South division. That's right. Winning the NFC South remains a realistic goal, and today's game between the 4-7 Saints and the 6-4 Niners will have a significant say in New Orleans' fortunes. But there isn't a much tougher opponent that the Saints could have drawn this week, as the Niners have won 3 straight by an average score of 30-13. That speaks to the offensive and defensive balance exhibited by one of the league's hottest teams, and hints at what the Saints need to do to extinguish it to a degree. It'll help, of course, that the Saints, for them, are in relatively good health for this one, with some key returnees. So let's look at today's inactives presented by Louisiana Cat, notable as much for who's not on the list today as it is for who is. And of course, you see the inactive list right there. Notables: Peyton Turner, who had a really good game last week, as well as Pete Werner still remains on there. Marquez Callaway, a healthy scratch this week. Marshawn Lattimore returned to practice in a limited capacity this week, and he is inactive, so he's working his way back into the fold. Lewis Kidd, also a healthy scratch along the offensive line. But I mentioned the guys who weren't on the list today. Mark Ingram, running back. Defensive ends Cam Jordan and Marcus Davenport. Left tackle James Hurst. All of those guys will be back on the field, as well as cornerback Bradley Roby. So the Saints will really get an opportunity to be a little bit healthier for this game, and they'll need them all for a really, really good San Francisco 49ers team. Now, let's check in with Aaron Summers at Levi Stadium in Santa Clara to give us a peek at the 49ers.
Thanks, John. Here at Levi Stadium, about an hour before kickoff between the Saints and the 49ers, the Saints have actually been in the Santa Clara area since Friday, opting to travel to California right after practice on Friday to get acclimated to the West Coast time zone, make sure they get some good rest ahead of today's game. Energy all week has been extremely high at practice. The Saints are coming off a win over the Rams, and they're the healthiest that they've been all season. For the first time this year, they've had the entire secondary on the field during practice. While they won't get everybody back for today's game, they should get some key starters on either side. That will be big against a San Francisco team that's been rolling of late. The 49ers started the season 3-4. Since then, they've won 3 in a row. A lot of it has to do with the 49ers acquiring Christian McCaffrey before week 7. Since McCaffrey's joined the 49ers, they've gone 3-1. They're averaging 28.5 points per game. McCaffrey averages 8.8 yards after catch. The team as a whole is first in the league with 7 YAC. It's an area that the defense is going to have to focus on today. The Saints have to fly to the ball and tackle to eliminate those yards after catch. On the other side for the Saints, offensively, they threw a little bit of everything at the Rams last week. Taysom Hill took a season-high 17 snaps at quarterback. Andy Dalton connected with 9 different players. Jarvis Landry, Chris Olave, and Juwan Johnson all found the end zone. That type of versatility, that unpredictable offensive rhythm is going to be key against a 49ers defense who is first against the run and led by defensive tackle Nick Bosa. He's second in the league with 10.5 sacks. It's going to be a lot of fun as the Saints are trying to bolster their playoff hopes. They're just a game and a half back in the NFC South, and they play pretty well here at Levi Stadium. They've won the last 3 here, John.
Thank you, Aaron. Great insight on the 49ers from Aaron. And speaking of insight, if you want to talk Saints football, whose is better than Saints Hall of Famer Jahri Evans? Evans is a semifinalist for entry into the Pro Football Hall of Fame, and he sat down with me this week for this edition of The Breakdown, brought to you by Microsoft Teams. And here's what Jahri had to say. Well, this week's edition of The Breakdown, we're going to be joined by former Saints offensive lineman Jahri Evans, a Saints Hall of Famer, a 4-time first-team All-Pro, 5-time All-Pro overall, and also a semifinalist for the Pro Football Hall of Fame this year. Ja, what does this team need to do to win, another game, especially a tough game on the road?
Possess the ball, play hard. I see AK just went over like 9,000 yards, all-purpose yards. So I think he's definitely integral in them, having success and playing well and find a way to get the ball in the end zone. But I think one of their biggest things is getting Christian McCaffrey, man. He's a dynamic running back, and when that trade happened, you knew that team elevated very quickly. He's familiar with New Orleans and the Saints defense, so I think that he's going to be a key component that they need to stop, and then just try to keep those guys from sustaining drives on the ground and heating up the clock.
Now, as for the Saints offense, we know obviously offensive lineman but more so a coaching internship with the Saints this past summer, and you work with that offensive line. So what are some of the things that you believe the offensive line needs to do for the Saints for this offense to be successful in this game?
For one, keep the QB clean, create some lanes for the running back and just play as a tight unit. I think that they've done some good things. Losing the young rookie was definitely a setback early on in the season, but I think that they have rebounded from that. And I think they're going to continue to rise up and continue to ascend and become a great unit.
Yeah. Can't let you out of here without again acknowledging the candidacy for the Pro Football Hall of Fame. What does that mean for you to be in this position to where this close to being in the Pro Football Hall of Fame?
It means a lot. I think it's been a lot of talk over the last couple of years since I retired, but this is an integral step. Going from 129 to 28 on the list, and I know it's a long process. We have a lot of people working behind the scenes, and I'm very thankful for all the help and all the guys that are working behind the scenes. I put in the hard work. The hard work is done, and now it's just time to enjoy it. And you don't know when, but I think it will happen eventually. But hopefully it happens, this upcoming season.
All right. Well, we're going to thank future Pro Football Hall of Famer. We're going to speak it into existence because it's going to happen. Future Pro Football Hall of Famer Jahri Evans for joining us here this week on The Breakdown. And Jahri, we will hopefully see you soon in the near future.
Yes, sir.
Well, it's always a pleasure to catch up with the All-Pro. New Orleans could use some Jahri level effectiveness on the offensive line for this one, though, because the Saints will line up against one of the NFL's best defenses. San Francisco allows a league-low 81 rushing yards per game, 3.4 yards a carry, and the Niners have 32 sacks and as many interceptions this season, 9 as touchdown passes allowed. Frankly, it's stacked from front to back. So where did the Saints find a weakness? They'll simply have to make one, and that might involve more of the 2 quarterback usage that we saw in their win against the Rams. Andy Dalton completed 21 to 25 passes for 260 yards and 3 touchdowns without an interception. Taysom Hill completed 1 pass for 14 yards and ran 9 times for a team-high 52 yards. The Rams perhaps weren't expecting to see as much of Hill at quarterback as they did. You heard Aaron mention he took 17 snaps from the position, the most he has in a game where he wasn't the starter at quarterback. The Niners are going to apply pressure. They always do, and defensive end Nick Bosa leads with 10.5 sacks. But the Saints, have to somehow keep Dalton and Hill clean. The best way to do that, run the ball effectively. Again, easier said than done against this defense, but if New Orleans can't run it well off handoffs, running back Alvin Kamara has to be a factor in the short passing game, and maybe receiver Jarvis Landry, and maybe tight end Juwan Johnson too. The Saints can't too often be in situations where the play call is obvious, creating a way for the Niners defense to be on its heels, or at least forcing it to respect the run is paramount. And if the Saints can't work their way to the red zone, Juwan Johnson has proven to be a big-bodied asset. Know who else has worked himself into becoming a major asset for the Saints? Linebacker Kaden Elliss. And let's hear from him right now as Aaron sat down with him for this week's Player Spotlight presented by Sanderson Farms.
Welcome into our Player Spotlight presented by Sanderson Farms. I'm Erin Summers here with Saints linebacker Kaden Elliss. Kaden, you're coming off a fantastic game, 11 tackles, a sack and a half. What is it about the work that you put in that allowed you to be primed and ready for that opportunity?
Just what he said, work, being able to put it in with, I'm surrounded by some pretty amazing people. I got my family, my wife and kiddos that make it possible, to, my dad and my brothers that I work with in the off season, coaches I've had in the past. Now I've got Hodges and DA, Nielsen, all these great coaches around me that have helped me, and great teammates too. Such a great linebacker group, such a great defense, such a great team. It makes it fun. So when it's fun, it's easy.
Who are some of the players that you've leaned on and looked towards for help?
The whole linebacker core. And then, when I'm out there, I think, my first true start in Pittsburgh, DeMario just came up to me right before we walked out there, and he was like, "Hey man, I'm here with you the whole time. You were built for this," and just, a little word from a man like him, a player like him, made it pretty easy to be like, yeah, let's go. Come on, let's go.
You mentioned your family as well. Your dad, former Pro Bowler, somebody that's coached you throughout your career, growing up, I'm sure.
Yep.
What is the biggest lesson that he taught you over the years?
Biggest lesson is definitely serve Jesus first. That's always been number one. But regarding to football, it's honestly, his things always dominate. You gotta have a little cockiness to you, but at the same time, number one is humility. So kind of balancing those two. But then when you get on the field, there's no more Mr. Nice Guy. It's go out, it's fly around, it's have fun. It's allow all the work you've put in to come to fruition. Don't put it all in the shadows and then not get the light, not get the shine on. So it's definitely been that regarding football.
All right, we're Thanksgiving week here. You have a pretty big family.
Yeah.
Can you rattle off all of your brothers and sisters' names?
I can. Esther, Caden, Olivia, Christian, Noah, Isaiah, Isabel, Sophia, Jonah, Micah, Elijah, me, and Colson. Yeah, it's a big family. It's a blast.
You've definitely had the crowd behind you in the Superdome. You've talked about how exciting it is to make a big play and hear the crowd cheer. How much fun was it on Sunday?
Oh my gosh, so much fun. So much fun. Just getting to play in front of that crowd, getting to make plays in front of that crowd and just feel the energy and just like the passion and the excitement. Oh, it's why I play, you know what I mean? It's so much fun.
The 49ers coming up, they're very versatile on offense, a lot of different playmakers. What is going to be the key for the defense to focus in on?
Gotta have good eyes, gotta know your responsibility and trust that everybody else is gonna do theirs, because this team, they've got all the wish-wash, they'll motion, turbo, all this stuff, but at the end of the day, you gotta know what your job is, and then when it's your time to make a play, it's your time. You gotta trust your teammates to do their play, and then as soon as it gets decided whose play it is, everybody else run and help that guy, because they got some stars on that side that, I believe we're gonna make every tackle, but if we do miss one, everybody else gotta be there to back them up.
Kaden, thank you so much for spending the time talking to us for our Player Spotlight presented by Sanderson Farms.
That's a great job, Aaron and Kaden. The defense will have its hands full today. So where do we begin? How about with San Francisco All-Pro receiver Deebo Samuel, who might line up in the backfield, pound the rock at the defense? Or maybe with former All-Pro running back Christian McCaffrey, who might line up in the slot or out wide as a receiver and run routes like a natural. We could start with tight end George Kittle, who had a 4-year stretch ending last year where he averaged 993 yards and 4.5 touchdowns on 73 catches. despite missing 8 games in 2020. Or maybe receiver Brandon Ayuk, who leads San Francisco in receiving yards, 587, and touchdowns, 6 this season. New Orleans has a plethora of players it needs to be aware of, and San Francisco will try to utilize all of them. And the Saints have had a leaky run defense for the vast majority of the season, so it begins there. If the Saints can slow down that element, and the Rams have run, the 49ers have run for 142 yards a game in the last 3, then they can worry about the quarterback. And of course, that's another worry altogether because Jimmy Garoppolo doesn't have eye-bulging stats, but try on these two. He's only been intercepted 4 times this season and only been sacked 16 times in 9 games. The Saints get back both starting defensive ends in this one. We already mentioned Cam Jordan and Marcus Davenport are back after eye and calf injuries kept them out against the Rams. New Orleans needs them to be disruptive. Pass rush help also can be supplied by Demario Davis as well as Kaden Elliss. Demario has a career-high 6.5 sacks. Kaden Elliss has 3.5 sacks in the last 3 games and 4.5 this season. But you don't get to rush the quarterback if you can't stop the run, and the Saints know it very well. So those are some of the Saints' needs on this game day. If you have any, make sure to download the ASAP app and have your game day needs delivered right to your door. Use code SAINTS22 to score free delivery, tickets, autographed items, and more. ASAP is the official mobile ordering partner of the New Orleans Saints. And now it's time for the Black and Gold Roll Call, presented by Bud Light.
What up, Peacock Ohana? My name is Brandon. This is Leanne, my son Bri. We're from Hawaii, Oahu, Kapolei. Go Saints!
Michael.
Nathan.
Jennifer.
And we are from Reno, Nevada. Go Saints!
I'm Deandra Brown, and this is my husband.
I'm Lawrence. We traveled all the way from Dallas to come see the Saints play, watch them play the 49ers.
Yeah, we actually didn't have tickets for the game, but we were already in town and realized, oh my God, they're playing today. So we got last minute tickets, and we're so excited to be here and represent New Orleans, because we're originally from New Orleans, and support our team.
My name is Yoni Godefa. I'm from San Francisco, California. I'm excited about the game, being Saints coming to San Francisco, here at home. What better way you can, for a game, So super excited.
Hey, how we doing? This is the Patron family right here from Live Oak, California, representing New Orleans Saints. Hopefully we get this win today. Let's go Saints, let's go.
I've been waiting all year to get to this game. Play my husband's team, the Niners.
We gonna get them.
But we're the Saints, and we're tough. They don't even stand a chance. So, hey, my family's from Louisiana. I live in Fresno, California.
And I was born in San Francisco.
That's all right. It was a nice little drive over here, and we got this.
Well, thank you for joining us on Game Day Live. Remember, join us for our post-game show right back here where Aaron and I will break down the game, and we'll hear from Coach Dennis Allen and several players. Until then, enjoy the game and go Saints.